From KVUE News in Austin, you're watching Texas This Week with Ashley Goodo.
Good morning. The Texas Senate passed a series of bail reform bills this week with support from both sides of the aisle, but the vote wasn't unanimous. We sit down with a local senator to learn why she voted no. But first, let's get to the 3 things you need to know in Texas politics. Education center stage at the Texas Capitol this week. On Thursday, the Senate Committee on Education advanced a teacher pay raise bill. Senate Bill 26 would give raises based on experience and district size. Teachers in rural school districts could get up to $10,000. Urban teachers could get raises of up to $5,500. On the other side of the rotunda, we're getting our first look at the House education bills. Lawmakers filed a school finance bill, HB 2, which includes an increase to how much schools get per student, and HB 3, the Chamber's Education Savings Accounts or voucher bill. It ties the amount of money parents could get to send their kids to private school to public school funding, making the amount of money in each ESA equal to 85% of the per student funding schools get from the state and local governments. An alarming report from ProPublica. The number of pregnant Texas women who develop sepsis, a life-threatening condition, skyrocketed after the state's abortion ban went into effect in 2021. Reporters found the number of women who developed sepsis and lost their babies in the second trimester increased by 55%. Records show dozens of pregnant and postpartum women died. So as the national maternal mortality rate dropped, in Texas, it increased by 33%. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is taking aim at the Texas lottery. In a video posted on X Wednesday, Patrick questions the integrity of the lottery after a winning ticket was purchased through a courier service at a retail store. The store and courier are owned by the same company. The Texas lottery is up for review this session to determine if it will continue to operate. Most people agree the criminal justice system is not perfect, and there is one particular issue members of the Texas Senate are trying to address. Someone accused of a violent crime being released on bail only to turn around and commit murder. For the majority of the Senate, the solution is a series of bail reform bills that aim to keep violent offenders in jail until they go to trial. The Senate has passed some form of these reforms for several sessions now, and this session is no different. This week, the upper chamber voted out 2 bills and 2 joint resolutions on bail reform. And while there was large bipartisan support, 2 senators voted no on all 4 pieces of legislation. Democratic Senators Molly Cook from Houston and Sarah Eckhardt from Austin. Senator Eckhardt joined me to talk about why she voted no. You know, I want to talk about the bail reform bills that were passed in the Senate this week. And before we go bill by bill, talk to us first. Do you think there is a need for some reform within the bail bond system in Texas?
I think there absolutely is a need for reform. It's certainly of deep public safety concern if violent, dangerous defendants are released unjustly, but it's also of deep public safety concern when nonviolent defendants are retained unjustly. So we certainly need to take a look at this.
Yeah. You know, you voted no on the bills. We're going to go bill by bill in just a second, but is there an overarching reason why you didn't support the bills that the Senate passed?
There is. The United States actually detains more people pre-trial than any other nation in the world. And the state of Texas has a higher rate of detention even than the United States. So that would indicate that we already are, we already have the tools to detain people. Where we're erring mostly is on detaining too many people who are not dangerous.
So do you have any concern then about the pushback from the other side when we see time after time, and it's happened here in Travis County, where someone is released and then they go on, someone who is, let me just say this, accused of a violent offense is then released on bail and then they go on to kill someone?
That is a horrific tragedy that we absolutely must guard against. And we definitely need to be vigorous in making sure that violent people remain behind bars pre-trial if we have good evidence that they have continuing dangerousness. Unfortunately, the system is not perfect. we do have acute circumstances of dangerous people being released. And we have chronic circumstances of people who are not dangerous being detained. So I'll give you an example. One of the statistics that has been widely reported is the numbers of people, the numbers of murders that have occurred in Harris County over a 4-year period by people who were released from detention. And I believe that the number is in the 150, 160 category over 4 years. Over the last 4 years in pretrial detention, more than 600 people have died of natural causes and suicide while they were waiting for justice, while they were waiting for their day in court.
You know, let's talk about the bills that were passed. So first off, we have Senate Bill 9, and this requires that a judge, not a magistrate, determine the bail and determine what would happen to someone if they are accused of certain offenses. It also expands the list of offenses that someone can be charged with where there is no personal bond offered. Why did you vote no on that bill?
SB 9 expands the list of offenses into the misdemeanor categories for cases where a judge does not have discretion and cannot issue a bond. And I question whether it is wise to take the discretion away from the judge, who is the individual that is supposed to look at the particularized circumstances and make that case-by-case determination. This instead leaves it with the part-time legislature making a blanket call that all individuals who are accused are probably a continuing threat. And that is a violation of our bedrock principle of innocent until proven guilty.
SB 40 had to do with bail bonds and having taxpayer dollars from cities and counties going to these charitable organizations that help pay bail bonds, largely for people who are low income. Mm-hmm. And this was something, again, that you did not support.
Well, I voted against it because this was a bill based on a tweet that was later discredited. As a former county judge, there is plenty of law already on the books that says that a county can't give public funds to a private, for private interest. So there's that. But also, just think of the bizarro world if a county sets a bond and says, you can't get out unless you pay this bond, and if you don't show up, we're keeping the money. But I'll tell you what, we'll pay it for you. I mean, that's just, the allegation was crazy on its face. Harris County actually debunked it, and yet we had a bill for something that's already illegal.
Okay. You also not necessarily a fan of SJR 1, and this is the resolution that if approved by the House, it still would have to go to voters for final approval, but it would say that immigrants who are in Texas illegally charged with felonies would not be able to be released on bond.
Since the federal government has already passed the Lake and Riley Act, if an undocumented immigrant is detained who has criminal history by CBP, by the Customs and Border Patrol, they will be detained. This bill requires all immigrants be detained if they are arrested for a felony. Again, it's not looking at their future dangerousness or their likelihood to willfully not appear. And that's what bail is for. It just presumes that if you are an undocumented immigrant, you are a continuing public safety threat and you will refuse to appear, to reappear.
The final bill in this sort of package of bail reform that came out of the Senate this week was SJR 5. This one would also have to go to voters in order to become law, but it would basically say for a certain list of offenses, your violent, your sexual, continuous human trafficking, you would not be able to get a personal bond. Tell me your concerns with that.
Actually, SJR 5 is almost a good bill.
But you still voted no. You were one of two
and I'll tell you
senators
why.
who voted no.
I'll tell you why. SJR 5, not a single amendment went on to SJR 5 in committee or on the floor. Not one. It really wasn't deliberated. Meanwhile, last session, the predecessor to SJR 5 went through the House process and had some really good amendments that made it a really good bill, giving judges greater discretion to deny bond, which I think is good. But the House had some really important additions that are just not on this current version. They were stripped off. And so I think that the House is going to improve SJR 5, and I look forward to voting for it once the balance is restored to it by the House.
Remember, the Senate has passed a version of these bail reform bills for a few sessions now, and those bills have always died in the House. The bills passed this week now head to the House for consideration. That's Texas This Week.